Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Zac Congonis. We are here to bring you the best solutions to your lifting problems. Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
Today we are breaking a little bit from our usual mold of listener questions, client questions, and talking a little bit more on our coaching experience, and in particular, how our coaching styles have changed over the years, our thoughts alongside technique, around programming, and everything that comes to getting people great results. Let's break it down. Whatever.
Mickey's mean. Mickey just pulled a prank on me, and it was the fucking most horrendous thing. I sit here, I try so hard, and Mickey puts in the group Discord. What did you say? I forgot to do something, and she was like, how many fucking times do I have to tell you this? Seriously.
No, I said how many times. I said...
This is a serious, very inclusive, non-harassing workplace that we create.
So Zac didn't do something. Alex had to follow up on it, and I said, how many times do I need to repeat myself? Admin. Seriously.
Angry admin face.
Angry admin face. And then Alex replies, Zac has left the server.
And I'm sitting there genuinely thinking I got in trouble, and I'm like messaging Mickey privately, like, come on, that was a bit mean in the public server, and they're just fucking with me.
Meanwhile, we're all just standing around laughing.
Come work.
Yeah, Zac, if you could cry over the top of these laughing sounds, that would be fantastic.
Come work for Nexus Performance. It's very inclusive, and they never make fun of you.
Only because I knew you'd be so butthurt about that as well.
We should. What's the song where it goes, I try so hard, that's all right. In the end,
that's not the lyrics whatsoever. Jesus.
In the end, it doesn't even matter.
Linkin Park fans just hating me right now. I'm probably going to get hate mail about that.
Just like, just pulling the hair down, the rest of the podcast like this.
Just full emo. Go emo.
No, we love you, Zac. It's all good.
Yes.
I'm behind you. It's all right.
I know. I just knew that you would be so triggered by that I just thought it would be brilliant.
I was genuinely upset.
I should probably let Jack and Jordan know that it was a joke
they're gonna
as well.
Think that I've just had my ass eaten on fucking the group admin chat.
Okay, let's not use that terminology. I haven't eaten your ass.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, another... So that could be another rule of the podcast for me and Zac is anti-admin.
Anti-admin? I already do that though. That's fine.
Yeah, we're both. That's what I mean. We're both in the same boat there.
Yeah.
Mickey has to butt out. Like, not allowed to bring out admin-based topics on the podcast. Because not only is it terrible listening, but me and Zac are the main hosts, and we do not appreciate admin.
No, not at all.
You both suck at it.
Hate admin.
That's why we chain Alex to the front desk.
Yes.
Alex just cops the heat.
What else has been happening?
Someone's been counting your cock.
Oh.
So,
Jesus.
long-time friend of the show, Craig, spent...
It's not a friend anymore.
Spent a large portion of his day going back through, I think, the first 7 episodes, because he kept saying that you kept, like, rearranging your junk. Well, I assume you were just, like, rearranging the undies because they got caught up the sides. And apparently, in all those episodes, you touched your wiener 22 times.
You know what this sounds like?
Episode?
I think through all of them. I think that's the cumulative total.
That's not bad. That's pretty normal. But you know what it sounds like to me? Criticism. And I nearly every episode state that I do not appreciate or take on any criticism whatsoever. So, I'm going to just go off the way you delivered it, as it sounds like criticism to me. If it was genuine feedback, like, I really like it, I would take it on, but it sounds like criticism, and I'm not about that. So, that's
so leave Will's Willy alone. Is that the?
Sometimes it's not, because I'm obviously sitting across him. No one can see me in screen, but he's not actually like playing with his big willy, but like scratching his leg or playing like pulling on the hairs of his leg or just fidgeting.
No one Craig would have been quite thorough to check. He did tell me. I think Craig is most likely. I mean, I obviously don't know every single one of our listeners, but Craig is probably the person that's listened to the most, because he actually was at the gym just recently, and he told me that he listens, as in the audio format of the podcast. So he listens to every episode, but he will go back and watch every episode.
Love that
as well. So
that's commitment.
I mean, I just don't know if anybody else would do that. If you do, like, Yeah,
Let us
that's
know if
good
you've
fe-
noticed
That's
something
good
else.
feedback. Yeah, I'll take that on board.
Comment on the YouTube. Comment on the YouTube.
Comment on it, like, subscribe, all that good stuff that we're
Yeah,
terrible
if
at.
you're not liking, subscribing, and commenting, you're not a true Nexus Unloaded follower. Let's be real.
So it's just Craig.
If we could bring, I haven't even looked at the stats of the podcast. Chances are nobody's listening. But if I went and had a look and added up the amount of hours that everybody's watching it, chances are Craig is 50% of it, based on what he told me.
He's a good man.
I appreciate it if it was feedback, but I do not appreciate it because it sounds like criticism.
Hard rule.
As far as what else is happening, we have just confirmed something that's been in the works for a while now, that the Compound Performance boys, Kyle Dobbs, Matt Dominey, my coach Matt Dominey, are going to come over. They're going to visit us. They're going to fly all the way over to us and present on some lifting things, which we haven't.
We won't release just yet.
Yeah, we haven't got exact details on it. We're still planning it, making sure it's as good as it can possibly be for their audience here. But I know Compound Performance and they're quite big, have a quite big following in Australia. So if you are interested in Compound and what Kyle and Matt have to say, that will be happening early next year. So
All you need to do we will be releasing early bird tickets. Here's the admin component. I'm inserting myself
not sure
here.
if I'm a fan of this, but continue.
You need to subscribe to our email list. Our email list and those in our Discord, our Nexus
like
clients, will be getting early bird access tickets to the seminars both weekends, and then. Yeah, we'll both days. Sorry, it's a 2-day.
We will inform you.
Yes, you'll be getting early bird access to both days.
Yeah.
So sign up for coaching purely to gain access to that. If you don't, you're not going to be an
No,
early
not
bird.
not. Well, you could sign up to coaching, but just sign up to the email list.
Yeah.
They'll be getting early bird access. I actually had a question. I know Zach usually drops in these questions and stuff like that as to whether or not you blow off before you train or
blow off. Jesus Christ. All right, I like where this is going. Continue, please.
Oh, God.
But I'm just going back to some of the, like, obviously, there was Jamal Browner and John Hack and all those guys recently competed over in the States, and they're making some pretty big spectacles of competitions and stuff like that over there. But one of the comps that John Hack did a little while ago, there was like a walkout to the platform, and it was all cinematic. Yeah, and it was all themed, and there was the LED light thing behind him and stuff.
Yeah.
So actually, like, it reminded me a little bit of like WWE, like walking down to the ring.
Yeah.
So what would be your song?
Achy Breaky Heart. Straight off the bat.
So quick.
Are you gonna break the hearts of the
I'm
audience?
gonna
break
I
your own heart?
will walk down to the platform, full soft suit, cowboy hat, boot scooting, if given the opportunity.
Just the side steps, just
Achy
flipping the heels
Breaky
together.
Heart. Would that be your max? Would that have to be the max out song as well? Because you kind of start the song and then, like, it shouldn't take.
Am I allowed to
3
have
to 4
different
minutes.
ones for each lift?
Nah,
Because I feel like,
just one song.
like even in the gym, I have like for squats, I'm a bit of a like rock type of guy, like a bit of upbeat, but not
Like Midnight Oil.
not yell your head off.
Get some Peter
Like
Garrett.
Iron Maiden.
It's something along those lines, and then just some old school metal or something like that. Linkin Park, like the Zac badly quoted before. And you don't try again. That's true. You're going to offend more people. On bench, I can do literally anything, but usually it's just whatever the gym's playing.
Spice Girls.
And sure. And so bench doesn't really, I don't need to get G'd up for that. But then for deadlifts, I like to have a little bit more pace and Lamb of God or something like that. That's a little bit more yell the house down. So I would like a different song for every. I know at Breakthrough they did it for your third attempt. At Breakthrough.
Yeah, it was jumping all over the place.
Yeah, on the third attempt you could play your own song, pick your own song. The DJ put on your song, but
it changed massively from like Stupus's trance
it was
beats
odd,
to some screamo to.
I think that's great.
It was great. I'm all for it, but it was like. Some people, were really low songs. Some people were really up songs. And then also, like, I think some people didn't realise that their particular song that they put forward had quite a long intro. So like it'll be literally just the intro, and then as they're finishing their lift, like it's almost starting to get into the song. And I was like, what a...
You'd certainly take that opportunity to fuck with the crowd. Like, have you heard the Mission Impossible flute solo on the recorder?
Yeah.
Play that. That'd be beautiful.
Well, it wouldn't be distracting to you.
Not at all. I think it'd be worth it. Like, say, imagine if you hit a 400 kilo deadlift to Mission Impossible poorly played on the recorder. That would go so viral so quickly. It'd be perfect. Anyone out there,
don't know if
please
you
do it.
As we've talked about in previous episodes, like everyone has their level of arousal. I don't know if that really gets me.
Let's just tag like Jamal Browner, because Jamal could pull 400 pretty comfortably on any day of the week, right? Like,
but he does have adult braces.
So let's... Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Nothing. I'm just putting it out there.
Paul Jamal.
Throwing criticism at him.
Yeah, let's.
As long as he doesn't criticise the bad.
Well, we're trying to at Jamal right now, and you're just fucking slandering the dude. He's going to listen to this and be like, "Fuck these guys."
If he listens to this, I will take a smack upside the head.
Oh, please. Okay.
Please.
I'm going to at him on this,
Please
and then be like, Jamal, can you please pull 400 to Mission Impossible on the recorder? Do you reckon I reckon he could do it easy.
He could do like 460. He could fucking do the 500 he just did with that recorder solo. There's anyone who wants to hit a PR to that song, tag us. Because it'd be fucking beautiful.
All right. My song is Jekyll and Hyde by, what is it called? Five Finger Death Punch. I had to Google it because I had no idea who the band was. But that's my like, if I'm going to go fucking hard.
Luke Polly loves that. I know.
Yeah, Jekyll and Hyde. There's a demon inside. Yeah.
That's
the question
what's the next
had.
lyric?
I don't know. Whoa, yo, there's a demon inside.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect recital. That's as good as Zach's Linkin Park one. Oh my God.
You have to listen to it.
We're going to do like an episode on karaoke. It'd be an absolute fail.
Well, you know,
People
I fucking
switch
love
off within
some
the
karaoke.
first 2 minutes.
You know, I'm a good... What's your karaoke song?
No, none.
Zach, do you have a karaoke song?
I do not have a karaoke song, to be honest.
I do.
The only thing I can
That's
recite verbatim is the 2016 Ajax spray and wipe commercial. I can do the whole thing. I don't know. I can do the whole thing from start to finish.
Oh my God.
Don't know why.
How long is it?
Oh, it's not very long. I'm not going to do it now. We'll lose every single listener.
Yeah, we're probably only at by this point, so it's all right. But let's
I just have one more thing as well.
Okay.
One more thing, and then I'm going to shut up.
Yep.
So for anyone that actually did listen to the very, very end of a podcast, you guys were giving me a hard time about my whistling. I've been practicing.
Oh, Christ.
I'm not going to be able to do it now because I'm laughing and it's on cue and I can't whistle on cue.
Then why'd you bring it up?
Yeah. Oh, that's not bad.
That's pretty good.
Much improvement. Because I don't know how many people make it through to the end, but I'm assuming not.
You guys all laughed
when we
over
start
the top,
to wrap
you
it up,
couldn't hear me.
people switch off. But before, I will give a recital of what Mickey's whistling sound like before. It was just heavy blowing. So, like that. That's what it was before. So quite an improvement, I would say.
I've been practicing. Have you not noticed me whistling around the house?
I have.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like the bad recorder thing. It's like just kind of you tone it out. It's just kind of like, yeah, fuck that.
How have we ended up here? Jesus Christ.
I don't know, but let's get on to our actual topic for the day.
We've gone adult braces to wieners to whistling.
All over the joint. All the stuff people love us for. Yeah, so the point that we were going to talk today on is a little bit different because it's not so much a question like all the podcasts have been so far. It is about our coaching styles or just our coaching in general and how they've changed over the years, because it's not so much a question that we've got from a client or from somebody, but it is something that has been asked many times over the years, and it's something I continue to ask you, and I continue to ask our other coaches, and we continue to talk about as a group, is just how our coaching has changed and how do we continue to develop the model that allows us to get the best results for our clients. Because it should change. It should change. It shouldn't be that you just you find the way, and you're just like, this is the powerlifting way, and like everybody's going to do this exact method and this exact technique or whatever, and it's like this just this is the way. You should go and learn things, update things as whether as science comes out or as other influences come in, and that's how you just get better at it, coaches. You just keep learning and keep tinkering. The one trap that people sometimes fall into is to go into a course and to completely rewrite the entire playbook. I just throw the book out the window and then just get a completely new book that you again have no idea how to apply, and end up ironically just making all the exact same mistakes, just using a slightly different terminology or slightly different exercises or whatever. I've been there as well, but that's another common one. So like, I'm not saying that we haven't done that much in recent years, but we've definitely tinkered and changed little aspects of it to allow us to continue to move forward.
I mean,
so
what it should be like, as you were saying that, I came up with
analogy.
Fucking oath, here it comes. What it should be like is the bulk of training knowledge is like a well put together buffet. You're in the room, you get all the buffet items in front of you, but you only have a certain size plate. So even though you can only put a certain amount of things on your plate, all the other things are still there. You don't just fucking go to the Tatey Gems, fill the plate with Tatey Gems, and then swipe the rest of the food off the table. Or Crawdads, Tatey Gems, whatever it is. But you're trying to use the most recent things that you've learned without forgetting that the other options are still there. And that's really what it should be. And as you progress through different things, you get a different client, you go to the buffet and you put the things on that are relevant to the client, then you give them the plate.
Yeah, usually I like analogies that are easy to remember and don't take a minute to recite. That's literally the point of it, I think.
I don't understand what's so difficult about that.
I mean, like the usual one people might bring up is the tools on a tool belt, and right tool for the right job.
Do I look like a tradie? Do I look like I can do anything productive with my hands?
You look like much more of a buffet guy for sure. But I mean, like a couple of different ones to relate to different people, I guess. But the idea is you have different methods, and it's going to apply to different people. And over time, as you go and do more courses, you might have 5 different ways you can solve a particular problem that's going to come up, and whether it works or not. It might, everybody's an individual and is going to respond to different things. So having multiple tools for the same job can be very, very useful, or multiple foods.
Multiple types of yogurt at the yogurt section at the buffet.
Yeah. And like you said, there's a thing recency bias, whereas if I go and do a course on XYZ method, it's always 3 letters, then I very much want to always be doing that particular thing. Like, it's like, if I've just learnt a brand new stretch, then
everyone gets it.
Everybody has to do that stretch, and that's going to solve all the problems. Whereas I think a coach that's been doing things for many years and has a wide buffet or a big tool belt.
Let's stick with the buffet.
Can choose from a wider range and pick a solution that's going to be better suited for that particular person or that in that particular situation with the stuff that they have access to.
And that's not to say that you don't gravitate towards certain things. Like, I know that we
were
talking about this. Yeah. We were describing have more things changed or stayed the same. There's definitely things that within my programming I always come back to, not just because I think they work really well, but because I believe they're easy to implement, people enjoy them. It's like,
you'd hope so, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're the things that you're usually going back to. Like, you're not giving someone the durian yogurt. You're probably going to go with coconut or vanilla. Someone might love durian, so you fucking give it to them. But for the most part, you're always coming back to the things that you believe work the best, whilst continuing to try and sample the other things to see if something else can kind of fill different spots in different instances.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we constantly go through this. And like, at the end of the day, like, powerlifting kind of is quite simple. Like, it's literally 3 lifts and we're only dealing with one attribute of strength, and we don't really have to worry about concurrent, like a footballer that has to be kind of half good at everything or something. So a lot of the programs do end up looking
Similar.
quite similar. Yeah, it's like SBD and SBD variations, and it's kind of like, and most powerlifters, most people that are kind of good at powerlifting are kind of similar and have similar issues and stuff like that. So there is a bit of a call out for like sometimes a cookie cutter type approach can be really useful if when everyone's kind of the same and having similar goals. But
my favorite
what happens when it doesn't work? Yeah.
My favorite thing was someone described powerlifting as optional manual labor in an air-conditioned room. And that boils it down. It's a very simple thing. There can be complexities in it, but at the end of the day, you're picking up sticks and circles in ways that are hopefully going to be better or worse at picking up sticks or circles.
Well, that's kind of that kind of leads into one of the things that I was thinking about in my coaching that's changed over the years, and that there are similarities between all these methods for good reason. You know, we talk about in the mentorship in terms of like our principles of programming, like things like specificity or whatever, that guide our decisions, that don't necessarily say you have to do it this way, but they're all going to have they're all going to be within that principle and moving in the direction of that principle, and it's a model to keep us on track. But over the years, I kind of have gone through lots of different courses, lots of different buffets, and and found it that I've had to pull things back to simple a lot more often than I've gone more complex. As in, like, I found myself trying to solve problems with way too complex of an idea or of a method to do that, where in reality, it's powerlifting, and we could probably get there by looking at the big picture and the fundamentals of the simple stuff a lot easier. Like a lot of people that go through our mentorship that we end up talking to, a lot of the questions that we get are like, how do I fix this little thing, or like whether it's a program thing or whether it's a technique thing or whatever. And I think probably 90% of the time people are amazed at how simple our answers are. It's like, yeah, look, just do a little bit less squatting or just change the stance of it, or, progress in a slightly slower way, tell the person to slow down. I don't know, like it's usually quite a simple thing rather than going like, yeah, try these 4 different warm-ups and then give them these 8 different cues, and then, in 3 weeks come back to me and tell me how you went type thing. It's usually we try to keep it as simple as possible, which keeps it as predictable and as manageable as possible too.
The part that can be difficult, though, is I know that for me personally, a very similar thing. When I first started off training and coaching, it was like, cool, let's just lift heavy things and get yoked. And that worked really well. Then we added more things and learnt more complex bits and pieces. Now the simple things seemed silly because there's all these complex things to think about.
Yeah.
And then you come full circle and you can only really appreciate the simple things when you understand the complex things, because you understand that the simple things have all the complex pieces in them, just in a way that isn't you circle jerking on the internet.
Using big words.
Exactly. You don't need big words to get strongs. You hardly need proper English.
I guess another one that kind of, you're lucky this is a podcast format. Another one that this kind of goes into is that I've got written down here is like I've realized more and more about how the little details don't really end up making as big an impact as what I once put focus on. So it's similar to what I just said, but even people all over the place, because like usually like with a beginner or a novice, I have said like they can walk into a weight room, pick up a random thing or sit on a random machine, do a couple of sets, and they're probably going to walk out stronger and next time be able to walk in and do a little bit more. Like it's that simple. Like it's not that hard to get someone in progress. And somebody a lot more advanced, it's a little bit harder to get more progression out of them. It's a little bit harder. They have a lot more going on. Load management is definitely way more difficult. But even with my elite lifters, I would say that over the past few years, I've tried to get away from looking at the nitty-gritty stuff and looking at the big stuff a lot more. As in, like, even the elite lifters out there, in my experience, still have fundamental things that they aren't so good at. Like maybe it's nutrition, like improving their nutrition a bit more, or just getting more steps in throughout the day because their job's quite sedentary. Just doing a little bit of cardio, just consistently getting things done. Just when they're coming into a comp, planning a little bit better so that their stresses and anxieties and they don't feel so overwhelmed at the end, and that allows their peak to go better. But like things like that, which might seem quite easy on the surface. A lot of people still aren't ticking all those boxes, and instead they're looking for complex solutions to them. Like rather than my life's an absolute mess and I get overwhelmed when I come into a comp prep because I haven't planned very well. They'll go like, I need to work out this comp peak strategy, and maybe I need to taper 10% more of my volume, and I don't know, just come up with some fancy way of getting around the problem as opposed to looking at the root cause. But I think a lot of these even from beginner, intermediate, advanced lifters usually have big fundamentals that they can improve as opposed to the little tiny details.
Well, people will make that mistake when they see someone who's really, really strong. They expect all of the small factors and they expect that person to have everything under control. When I know a hell of a lot of really strong people who are strong in spite of the things that they do, not because of the things that they do. And generally... There's always
especially in powerlifting.
Oh, 100%. Like the amount of powerlifters who I've seen have a cigarette before squatting 400 kilos is too high. Like I've seen that multiple times. Not just once. I've seen that more than 5 or 6 times, which is quite a lot considering how many people squat 400. There's not many of them.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like a lot of these people can get quite significant progress by just improving some of these bigger basic stuff. And my job as a coach... is to make those bigger basic things happen. Like this kind of leads us to another one in that I feel like, and it's kind of the same thing again, I guess, is some of the more complex programming stuff that I've played with in the past, just I don't feel needs to be there a lot of the time. Like getting somebody stronger really isn't that difficult until you start to throw into the mix, like some injury history and, some other big kind of issues. But like for the most part, getting people stronger, the programming doesn't need to be crazy, like difficult or just way more complex than people think. Usually simple programs work very well when they are done very well. Yeah, and that's the big caveat to it. Like I don't know how, like with your coaching, like with your people that you deal with, but with my people, like most of the programs are simple, and when we bring them up on the mentorship, people are like, what the fuck? This looks like it's a very simple program. They're expecting like some magic, and I'm like, no, it's pretty simple. But, I'm always on this person's case about how hard they're pushing or how hard they're not pushing, and like when to push, when to pull back, how we're planning forward weeks, all that other stuff I mentioned about nutrition, cardio, sleep, stress management, like all those other details that go into like getting the most out of the program. All that other stuff is much more of my job than I think people realize.
Yeah.
I think people realize that I'm sitting behind a spreadsheet just putting in numbers and doing like crazy complex math and working out like these little fucking formulas where my reality is dealing with people's shit and working out how they can actually apply the program, the simple shit.
Yeah, I mean, that is really the majority of the job. I mean, for me, the only valuable thing that I ever got from university statistics was understanding percent error and the fact that people have a certain amount of percentage error. And if the interventions that you're taking are in your program are smaller than the percent error that the person's going to make, like if you're counting 500-gram jumps on a bench press when they're using uncalibrated bumper plates, maybe settle down. Like there's certain things there's going to be inherent failures and inherent downfalls built into the fact that there's a person doing it. So you kind of have to account for that. If the plan's so dialed in to the degree of a bee's dick, something's going to go wrong. And then if something goes wrong, then those intricacies of that plan no longer apply for the most part. Yep.
Another one on the novice intermediate that just jumped to my mind then was that, this isn't really to do with coaching, but just a bit of an add-on.
Observation.
But really is that most people think that they're not novices. Most people think they're advanced well before they're advanced. You know, like people are like, nah, I'm ready for that fucking five times a week bench, man. Like I'm ready. I swear I saw this guy do it in Uzbekistan and he got sick gains. So I'm ready for that. I think that's the key. And like, man, you're making sick progress on 2 times a week bench. Why don't we keep doing this? You know, they just want the more quote unquote advanced solution. But like I said, I bring up some of my advanced lifters, some of my elite lifters who are hitting stupid numbers. And it's way more simple than people think. It's just that they do it really fucking well, week in, week out.
And that's the same with most things. If you do it really well and you do the basics really well, you're probably going to get much, much further than you'd expect. And I mean, that point to people thinking they're better than they are is massive. Because people think they're above simple solutions, when for the most part, people are dealing with very simple problems. Like, hey, your recovery's poor, you work night shift, that seems pretty simple to me. Try to get some more sleep. In application, probably a little bit harder than that, but it's people think that, oh nah, I'm nailing this, I'm eating all the good food, and it's like, hold on, you just had 14 things of KFC this week. It's like, what's going on here?
The solution's usually pretty obvious, but doing it is much easier said than done. Actually getting it done, because we're all busy. We all have busy lives. Like nobody's like, oh man, I just do nothing all day, so like I can just fucking eat whenever I want, sleep whenever I want. Like there's very rare a person like that comes into our hands. But everybody's busy. Everybody's got shit on. Everybody has lives, and so our job is to essentially work the simple shit around them so that they can apply it to the best of their ability. Especially in powerlifting, we're not paid to do this. It's not our job.
It's a labor of love. Like if you had somebody and you could just put them in like a sleeping pod between every training session, chances are you just do straight linear progression at all times. Like it wouldn't be fancy if they're recovering 100% every day because you put them in a fucking hyperbaric chamber pod sleeping for 15 hours. You're not going to undulate a goddamn thing. It's just going to keep going up.
Yeah. It's going to be pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's what I mean. Simple works when you do it right.
But then when the hyperbaric chamberman has his wife leave him, and his dog vomits blood on his carpet, and then he gets fired from his job, and shit goes wrong.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder then.
It's much
to get
harder.
The results out of the program. What about technique? Where have your views changed much on like just technique in general? And I don't mean like, oh yeah, I used to think that squats were good, and now I think they're bad. I mean like just. Just in general, from a coaching point of view, has your views on technique changed much?
I think that for me, the bandwidth of what is acceptable has increased over time. I think when I first started, I had quite a narrow view as to what was acceptable movement. And now it's just a little bit more nuanced in the fact that, okay, I understand that not everyone wants to be a world champion. I understand that not everyone wants to move as much weight as possible. Maybe this is fine for their current situation. And not being so hung up on trying to make it perfect, but just make it fit the goals of the person. Like if someone never wants to hit a 1 rep max deadlift, and they only want to hit like light sets of 5 or 6, because that's all we need to do, probably doesn't matter as much how they're picking it up.
Yeah, I think understanding the multifactorial world of injury mechanisms really helps with that. Because maybe 10 years ago, I thought if a person's knee caved,
it explodes
3 degrees, then that's a massive injury risk, and we should try to put that fire out ASAP and take him back to a goblet squat. Whereas now it's like, is it hurting?
Does it hurt?
like they're like, no. And it's like, okay, well, fuck it.
Oh, fuck. I'm going to throw someone under the bus here. They were complaining that something was sore, and the words I said to them was, is it hurting more or less than you stepped on a Lego brick? They said less. I told them to shut up. Like, if it hurts less than a Lego brick.
Like, we won't go into this because it was in a previous episode, but again, like, is it progressively getting worse? Is it there are many reasons that come into the injury and pain management, but such a hole to get down, so I won't go there again. But yeah, I would say as a whole in the industry, that I think people have a little bit more knowledge around that now. People have a little bit more understanding of some of these other models, coaching models, like a biopsychosocial model, dynamic systems theory, stuff like that, that help us understand that, like, it's not as simple as what some people make it out to be. It isn't just stick figures. Like, we're living adaptable creatures that are actually way more adaptable and resilient than we once thought, and we can get away with a hell of a fucking lot. Like the amount of like absolute shithouse deadlifts that I've seen that are incredibly strong that just make you scratch your head. You're just like, holy fuck! Like, you know, like we can really get away with a lot. You know,
you can get away with so much, but also it limits the ceiling. Like we mentioned Jamal earlier, you look at his deadlift, it's not shocking that he can pull 500. It's immaculate.
Efficiency.
It's efficient, it's well practiced, it's just a great deadlift. So it
that's where we
sense.
butt heads on this. That's where the industry butts heads on technique. Yeah. So like, you know, you've got the physios over here going like, you know, they won't get injured with doing crappy technique. You're all idiots. Let people do whatever technique they want. And then you've got the, you know, technique Nazis on the other side going like, you know, a complete opposite of that. If your technique falls out 1 degree, you're going to die. But then, yeah, it's really more of a context as to what you're arguing. Like, what is good technique to you? Like, what is, like you said, is it the person who doesn't really care about 1RMs that is really not going to be a world champion powerlifter? Like, the way or the expectations for their technique are going to be different to somebody who does want to be at that level. Like the 1% efficiencies are very different, and probably the loads that are going through that technique are very different as well. And the way we program them, there's so many different factors that come into it. It's not just Anyway, going a bit off that, but yeah, it is. Yeah, I would say in general, technique in the industry is headed more of a wider bandwidth, like you said. Like, it's more acceptable, and it's definitely like something me and you have picked up throughout the years, just by understanding more about how adaptable people are.
Yeah, and just by seeing
and
people
you get better
being
at programming
successful.
too.
People being successful and possibly not an ideal pattern. If you see that enough times, like, okay, this is viable. It may not be viable forever, but for now.
You also said perfect technique a few minutes ago as well, and I just wanted to throw out there that because it was a conversation I just had recently, that if you're chasing perfect technique, you're chasing like a unicorn. Like, it doesn't really exist in that way, and you're gonna have more frustrations than not if you didn't have that concept in your head. So, yeah. Like,
the examples you used for that, though, when you were discussing it with this individual, was like, you look at the world record holders in a squat.
In each weight class, in each division, across all of them, they're all going to look slightly different. They all move slightly differently. They're shaped very differently. Their backs are rounded to different degrees. Their knees are caving to different degrees. Their grip width, stance width, everything width is different.
The chick that's blowing up on my Instagram at the moment, I don't actually know her name. She's big curly hair. Her feet are so close together, and her knees literally nearly touched.
Yeah, but her arms.
200.
Not the deadlift, but squatter. I saw one that her arms are like super long.
215 kilo or 213 kilo squat at like 60 kilo body weight and sleeves. I don't know who it is, but I didn't get that far into it. But like, massively different to what some of the other squats are looking like at the moment, or other world record squats.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a thought experiment, you could put together the perfect person for each lift. Like, if you went into like a software to build like the perfect limb length, the perfect insertion of muscles, and you can calculate down to the nth degree the most efficient way to move a barbell from A to B, that would be perfect. But the length that you would have to go to calculate that shows how unrealistic that is. Like, there has to be the best way ever, but it's someone who doesn't exist.
Yeah, and they still have to have the right lifestyle stuff, the right environment, the right everything around them to make it work, obviously. So back to technique here, and more from a coaching lens, but for me, and what you said with the acceptable bandwidth being wider, but like for me, I guess something that's changed to that over the years has been like really not worried about, again, the small details so much, and like cueing people many, many different ways to try and get the result, and instead just choosing better exercises, managing load and fatigue a little bit better, just integrating ways for them to be successful in their programs, as opposed to just setting them up for failure in a way by just kind of like giving them exercises that they aren't ready for yet, which sometimes is SBD.
Just the conversation as well. The one sentence, show, don't tell, massively shifted how I looked at things. Like, as you said, you want to go in there, the ideal exercise is an exercise that you can show them once and they can do perfectly. If someone can do that, that's a fantastic exercise for that given task. The more you have to try to get them to fit into the mold of the exercise, probably the less appropriate the exercise is. And as you said, someone isn't ready for a barbell squat straight off the bat 100% of the time. Some people just aren't. Some people need other things to help teach them because there is always a skill component. There is always things to learn to get better at the act of skill. So showing and not telling can be pretty fucking huge in terms of trying to progress people, and it shifted my mindset quite a lot.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's you're still more likely going to do a squat, bench, and deadlift, but like there are training protocols you can manipulate around it to allow for more success.
Like if you have someone who can't do a push-up properly, or they can't, you have someone who falls over when they try to walk. Like you're probably not going to put a barbell on the back. Like there's certain things, like if a person's completely inept at being a human being, and there's like this amorphous blob of fluid on the floor, you can't start at like the highest thing. And some people are amorphous blob of fluid. I mean, not to that degree, but some people just can't move at all.
Yeah. Usually the
I mean, amorphous blob's kind of mean, but
somebody who's been sitting on their couch for 20 years and hasn't really moved, hasn't done anything, and then comes in and expected to jump on the platform, which is a completely different discussion. But it kind of is one of the hard things as being a powerlifting coach is you're not training athletes sometimes, right?
No, and people can jump on the platform whenever. Doesn't mean they have to be perfect. They might bench 20 kilos, but they can still fucking do it.
Yeah, it's a pro and con to the sport for sure. Another one that I've got listed here, these were just kind of random thoughts that popped in my head, but being less strict, this is a personal thing as an athlete as well as like from a coaching thing, something that I've tried to adapt. And it's hard for me because I've had this, but it's being less strict on things at certain points during the year can be a step forward, just like a deload in a way. Powerlifting is really forgiving in that front. So like what I mean by that is sometimes you're way better off just stepping off the gas just a little bit, being a little less strict with your nutrition, being a little less strict on your exact training protocols and everything like that. Sometimes that can be a useful thing in order to allow for the bigger picture progression. Like I personally, a long time ago, like went through phases where I was like absolutely like quote unquote perfect on everything. Like I would count my macros to the dot every single day of the year. I would, every training session would be extremely documented and extremely like just really nitty gritty details, everything ticked, and it allowed for a heap of progression. Don't get me wrong. Like there's no way that can't work. But longer term, it kind of screwed me up because like you can't do that forever. Like you sacrifice a lot to be like that. You sacrifice whether it's social events or whatever it is. Like there are things that have got to come at that cost, and you can't do that forever as your life gets a little bit busier. So you can end up just digging yourself a deeper and deeper hole mentally and physically with it. So with my athletes, if I can kind of see these trends a little bit clearer now in people, but I'll encourage people like, hey, let's back off the gas a little bit. Let's be a little less strict on things. Let's have a little bit more fun in the gym. Let's be a little bit more social overall. And like I said in the last bit of that, the powerlifting is quite forgiving. I haven't really done much SBD at all for until recently for a long time, for a couple of years. Maybe I was doing deadlifts and I was just kind of, but they certainly weren't structured. I was just kind of like, fuck it, whenever I feel like it, I'm going to push it. And my coach Matt from Compound, he's been really good to help me navigate it. But being super duper flexible. But guess what? Like I'm back now, and maybe 2 months of consistent training, and being fairly consistent overall. Numbers, it's literally at the moment just linear progression. Like each week is just heaps better than the last in terms of the numbers on the bar, and in terms of my confidence in the lifts. Powerlifting is extremely forgiving on that front. So it's just proof that you can step away and come back, or have periods where you're less serious and more serious, and make for better overall long-term progression from it.
On that same point as well, from my perspective, having had taken planned breaks and have had being forced to have breaks because I pushed too hard and fucked something up, the planned break is much kinder to your head. Like, if you can catch things, or hey, look, I'm getting a bit burnt out. Once you cross the precipice of, I hate this fucking sport, everything sucks, or you take a step back 2 months before that and say, hey, look, I'm a bit burnt out, I might take some time. The overall speed at which you return to enjoying the thing you're doing is much quicker if you don't go off the depressive cliff of despair into life-hating, and then you start doing Olympic lifting. Then you realize you're bad at Olympic lifting, then you slowly come back.
It's easier to change. It's much easier to change the goalpost than it is to do that. But yeah, it's just like I said. It's kind of like deloads. Like not everyone wants to take a deload. They're like, oh, what's a deload? A week of wasted training? Kind of, but. I mean, in its raw form, yeah. It's just like we're not getting a lot of forward momentum.
Vegetables waste stomach space, but they're necessary.
Man, that's a touchy analogy again.
Mickey's just twitching in the background. Like, eat your fucking veggies.
But yeah, I'm sure we could go into why they're good for you. But yeah, it's a 1 step forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward scenario with a deload, and the same thing with this overall, just on a much larger time scale. It's something that I think everybody needs to think about, whether you actually do it, if you live a life where you're just a lot more flexible, and you're that guy that I said before, that you're that guy that just lives a really kind of comfortable life and doesn't have a whole bunch on and stuff, you probably can push it for way longer at a time without needing the break as much. But most people are going to benefit a lot from just having some ups and downs. And we talk about it in terms of periodization overall. I think we include in the periodization picture, not just training periodization like most people think about periodization. Have you got any other points for us?
That rounded me out.
Is there any...
I got nothing new.
No other systems or anything that you wanted to go through as far as like just coaching epiphanies over the years?
I mean, I guess like the biggest change was all the respiration shit that we did. That was probably the biggest one that turned my head and said, okay, there's a lot of stuff here, but what's applicable, what's not applicable, and it kind of just helped refine for me what's useful in certain instances. And just kind of help with critical thinking. But I guess more than anything, that's just being exposed to new ideas.
Yeah. It's again, like you said, it's not what's wrong and right. It's about just what's useful in particular situations, and having more tools available, more methods available to get the job done.
More yogurt
is never a bad thing. It's just your application of them is what counts. So that's all I have to really say on that, is that I don't think it was I don't think it's that any of that is wrong. It's just a contextual thing, and we use it less now because I understand that powerlifting and doing really heavy squat, bench and deadlifts is really hard to overcome with low load drills. So we will kind of pick and choose when we use them a lot more carefully than what we once did. And that's totally fine, because like the evolution of a coach thing, you need to learn, you need to apply, you need to...
I mean, to round it out nicely, the only thing that is wrong is not training.
I guess so.
That's a good wrap up, I think.
Cool. All right, we'll leave it there. If any of the coaches that listen to this have any interesting things that you've changed your opinion on and that have changed your coaching systems over the years, your thoughts on any of the things that we said, leave it in the feedback form. Same with the lifters. If you guys have any thoughts, ideas, anything that's evolved over time and changed over time as you've worked with, whether it's maybe with different coaches and you've been exposed to new things that have or haven't worked for you, and things have changed. Again, want to hear about it. It's always really interesting. You're not going to get criticized for it. It's all different ways to move forward. So yeah, hit us up.
Or if you want to send us your
form.
favorite yogurt flavor, you can also send that through there.
Yeah.
If you want to.
Why? I don't know what buffets you're going to that have an array of yogurts.
No, you know how when you go to the cereal section, then there's a little fridge in the corner, and the fridge has
there's
little
usually
yogurts.
like one yogurt though.
Yeah, there's not many. I'm specifically thinking of this one buffet that I went to. This one single buffet which had 2 types of yogurt. And that's what's been in my head the whole time, but we'll leave it there.
Oh, I'm frozen again. I'm frozen right at the end. My God. All right, we'll leave it there. Technical error finishes us off.
Thank you for listening to Nexus Unloaded. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned on today's podcast, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gym services. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at NexusPerformance.Aus for any updates on what we are currently doing. See you all in the next episode.